Bitcoin short squeeze. There are signs that this could happen. And I'm going to give you guys all those signs. I'm going to show you guys the evidence that I've been finding indicating a possible short squeeze is in the near future. So that's what we're going to get into right now, guys. I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about. First of all, we need to understand what the characteristics of the market is right now for Bitcoin, because understanding this will give us a better indication of what we're looking for, right? We got to understand what we're looking at, not just in the chart aspect of it, but we need to understand what the actual characteristics outside the chart look like, right? As a reminder, as a refresher. So we all know Bitcoin had a massive drop and it came all the way down below $80,000 USD on Bitcoin, and then we saw a quick recovery and then a big dip, and now it's sort of trying to recover again. But here's the thing, right? Bitcoin dropped to 84K. It was actually more than that. Phil CME futures record price gap, nearly $1 billion in Bitcoin bets were liquidated, and this is primarily leverage bets, right? So we got to understand that CME gap it's pretty much in the past now. It's filled. So now we just got to worry about any potential more tariff news, what the likelihood of continued tariff news actually look like, and what we can be expecting, and just primarily just what the current flow looks like on Bitcoin, right? And then we also know that the Bitcoin supply, right? Less Bitcoin is being made over time, created, mined over time, and much, much more Bitcoin is being removed. We are seeing demand much stronger than supply, right? This is a quick refresher on that. Another thing too is all this negative news, all this scariness that was happening in the market. Well, first of all, in February, right, last month, we saw a dip in the beginning of the month. Sort of expected we were kind of up a little bit on a range, and then we came into the bottom of the range, and we held that bottom of the range pretty much for the majority of the month. And then towards the end of the month, we started seeing bullishness, and that got ruined by a lot of emotional fear due to tariffs potentially increasing inflation, and then, of course, make it more difficult for the Fed to do what everyone wants them to do, which is cut rates, right? So all that got ruined towards the end of the month due to tariff news, primarily, right? The fear involved in it. So that's what we saw in negative February, when we were, at first of all, expecting a strong February, like historically, especially on the last month of a bullish cycle, the last year of a bullish cycle, I should say. So now the question is too, right? What is the likelihood of us seeing a much stronger March? So far, March is up just about 5%, and we could potentially see much higher prices due to the delayed rally due to tariff fears, right? So can we see what we didn't see here? Can we see it made up in March, right? I'm going to go over the likelihood of that. And then also, this is where a lot of the short squeeze evidence also comes from, right? So besides the CME gap being filled, recent tariff news didn't bring the price back down to its previous major swing low. And at the same time, I think for like 2 days now, we've been seeing a pretty decent gap and weakness on Bitcoin's liquidation heat map, especially on the week-long liquidations. There hasn't been a lot of resistance pressure building up lately on these heat maps. A lot of exchanges don't really show much. They're pretty weak. And the ones that do show something are a lot higher up, just one line, and a lot of them, the majority aren't showing any significant strong liquidations like we've seen before. And that's very interesting, actually. We have like a big gap where there's no liquidation, and then all the ones we do, we see very weak, thin liquidations, not really creating anything significant. So if Bitcoin does pump, the likelihood of this happening, depending on the structure, which we're going to jump into in just a moment, but this is creating a very, very easy pathway, unless there's some crazy news that comes out like soon, some crazy more negative news, I believe there's also a lot of the EU is open for negotiations, and there's a lot of there's a lot of negotiations trying to build up to see if they can lessen impact of tariffs, right? So we can potentially be looking forward to keeping an eye on any more news related to that coming up in the future, right? Throughout this month. Um, so yeah, like this weakness in the heat map we're seeing in a few different exchanges creates not much selling pressure on Bitcoin when it comes to certain levels, and that can easily just be broken through, and we can see the prices easily liquidate a lot of these weaker short lines, and then just create that short squeeze and push up higher, right? So this can be influenced not just simply by the liquidity map, it can be influenced by a lot of macroeconomic pressure that can be changing due to, again, maybe a shift in fear regarding tariffs due to, again, potential negotiations, and then also uh, the deep value ranges that we're seeing in Bitcoin now. And on top of that, I do believe that due to the large amount of institutional adoption, the amount of Bitcoin that keeps getting taken out by large institutions that intend to hodl for a while, uh, I believe I believe a lot of that deep value Bitcoin has been picked up by them. So if we do see any downward pressure, maybe trying to max out the red area once again, it will not be very short lived, because I do not believe those sub $80,000 Bitcoins are sustainable due to, again, a lot of that deep value Bitcoin already being picked up. And the amount of retail sell pressure is really high right now. So it's very, very possible that we can see a short squeeze soon, as Bitcoin continues to stabilize at these discounted levels. And again, even if we do see some more tariff news, any negative news in the macroeconomic world, it's not going to be very short lived. I do not believe it's sustainable. This is my own personal opinion, right? But what can we be looking at in the chart itself, indicating a potential rally that is cooking up, right? So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. We had Bitcoin. Oh, and congrats for a lot of you that bought Mara and MSTR during these deep discounts level, like Mara. Um, when we were past this right here, anyone that picked up, congrats on that. Really good. You're probably up quite a bit now. And then everyone that's been accumulating MSTR within the deep value red area, you know, pretty good, pretty good. But Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin. Well, first of all, right? A few days ago, I did say we were trading around here, and I said I created this yellow area overlapping these two imbalance areas, and I said that we can potentially see Bitcoin use the 120 as a support, which it did, and try to max out the green area right here, or the yellow area, pushing through these green imbalance areas as potential resistance. And that's exactly what we saw, and now uh, confirmed resistance. And then I said, well, we can easily see the price come down and try to use this imbalance as a support. And we didn't. We used it as support. But then more tariff news came out, negative stuff causing fear and pushing it back down. At that point, I made a quick update and I said, all right, well, the next imbalance area is down here, overlapping with that retracement area. We could potentially see this area act as a magnet, and then try to see if we can hold the retracement area in blue as a potential support. And that's exactly what we saw. We saw it come down, the RSI maxed out to the bottom side, and now we're using that support, confirmed support, and we're going up higher. During today's live stream, I also updated the next resistance area, which is represented by two things, right? The extension area right here acting as, or not extension, the retracement area in yellow. Of course, it's from this swing high all the way to the bottom of the swing low. And I said that if we can potentially push up past the 120 moving average, it's very likely that we can come up into this new imbalance area right here from this dip, and then try to find strong resistance around this area, around the 0.5 at 88.3K. As of right now, that area is holding as resistance, and we're continuing to hold above the 120 moving average, even though the RSI is not maxed out yet. And it doesn't have to. It back here bottomed out, didn't max out the top side, and then it bottomed out once again. Bottomed out, didn't reach the top side. It could bottom out once again. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. There is some short-term risk in Bitcoin route due to, again, a lot of this just comes down to tariffs, causing a lot of risk on asset fears. Like Bitcoin is categorized as a risk on asset in Wall Street at the moment. But during today's live stream, I also said that we have these imbalance here. No, sorry, liquidation walls that formed on the 24-hour. Besides coming up to the imbalance and coming up into the yellow area and trying to get to that zero point 0.5 range, we could potentially see one of these two levels being hit and acting as a strong resistance. We reached 89K perfectly right there on the green line, and now we're showing that resistance. I said that if we can't pass these liquidation walls, we could potentially see the price come down. And there's a few support areas that we can look at, right? We can look at the 120 and then an imbalance right here. Well, the imbalance can stretch all the way up to 86.5, but we have a strong imbalance more to this lower side. I usually try to go to the more extreme side because again, this is a volatile asset. So we can easily come down here. If this fails, I will not be surprised if we try to retest 80 between 78 to 80K once again as a double bottom right here, because a lot of people will be saying, oh well, head and shoulders pattern, so we can potentially see it come down. And you know what, that's absolutely valid. That is true. We are seeing that the RSI doesn't want to max out. We're seeing these liquidation walls hold strong, and this retracement area mixed with the imbalance area is holding strong as a strong resistance. So yeah, it's very much likely that we can see, as fear begins to settle, this come down 120 moving average. We'll see if that holds, and then we'll see if the imbalance down here holds. But I will say this, though, in my personal opinion, I've said this many, many times, these discounted levels are not sustainable. So even if we do see, which right now it is looking likely, although we can still push up more as the Asian markets open this evening. We can easily see, if they begin to buy, we can easily see this push up more, max out the yellow at 89.9K, and then try to see if we find resistance there, or find resistance at the 1 week liquidity at 95K. But if we come down, so we can easily go up, but if we come down, which was at the moment, it is looking like volume is trying to change to the negative side. But I always say that these deep value levels are not sustainable, in my personal opinion. If Bitcoin were to just crush a lot of this support and come down lower, and even retest the lower range of this red area, it's a massive buying opportunity, because it's just these deep value Bitcoins cannot trade in those areas for a long time. There's just too much buying in the background, regardless of negative retail sentiment. Like back here, we didn't really have any positive news, but it was super discounted. We saw the support area, this red support area that I made well before we reached into it in front of you guys. I think I made it during a live stream. We saw it max out perfectly, and then it just couldn't sustain itself, and it pushed up higher. And we can easily see that again. But the thing is, if retail remains to stay negative and those liquidation walls do not evolve to become any stronger, the moment Bitcoin pushes above those, it will just create a short squeeze that can push us all the way up easily to 95K as a test to see if we're finally going to go up higher, and just leave all this deep discount areas in the past, right? So I'm very bullish, and if we come down here, I'm gonna be buying more. BitU, you guys already know my BitU position. With over 2,000 shares, I really want to accumulate more before we start seeing a new all-time high on Bitcoin, which is very, very much possible. It just comes down to the liquidation walls just remaining to be weak, seeing if they don't become stronger. Watching tariff potential negotiation updates being released throughout this month, keeping an eye on that. And then keeping an eye on Bitcoin short-term noise, right? With like, if we come down, it's just not going to be sustainable. We come down, try to max out this area or pump up higher, because we can still max out the yellow. Trying to see if the 24-hour liquidity at 90K can be broken. start wiping out a lot of those leverage short positions, the weak ones, to bring us up back to 95k and see where we go from there, right? So I'm very much bullish. Even if we dip down, it's not going to last very long, and we're going to see a pump happen, most likely, I believe. And if we push up higher, we push higher. But we can either do it now, or we can do it, just delay it by a little bit and then start going up higher. I truly believe that we're not going to stay below 90k for much longer. I do believe that we can potentially see weakness throughout the rest of this week, and then we're just going to start moving up higher, because again, we even right now, if you guys were just looking at basic structures, right? We have a low, we have a high that surpassed all these swing highs right here. Enough, there was enough momentum, due to, of course, positive news with the reserve pushing this higher. Really good area to find resistance based on the structure for the extension, and then we start coming down. We find support at previous, because back here, I even said this before, back here we had a wick that came into this area. So even when we were trading up here, I said, well, if we keep going down lower, we can easily fill in this imbalance, because we never had a candle close in it. We had a wick come into it. That's not good enough, at least for me. Eventually, we saw a candle close in it. A little bit of consolidation. We saw the blue area maxed out, and now we're pushing up higher. So now, it is looking likely, as long as volume keeps in the negative side, that we can come down and try to find resistance at the 1.236, 84k, around there, as a strong support. If that breaks, then we're just looking at one more dip. It's not gonna last long before we start pushing up higher. So overall, I'm bullish. Yeah, guys. And that short squeeze is very much possible, but I'm gonna keep an eye on those liquidation walls, because if they begin to increase and become stronger, more levels showing stronger yellow, then I'm just gonna, it's gonna be much harder for a short squeeze to happen, because they're gonna be too strong. But if they stay weak, we can see that happen. If Bitcoin starts to find that momentum and push up higher to try to reach the 1 week liquidity, it's just all gonna get crushed, and then we can have enough momentum to start trying to make our way back up to the original structure that we were at before all the fear began, right? Fear doesn't last forever. Eventually, everything goes back to normal, and I do believe we're towards the end of it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and take care.